so we will open it up for public comment after the presentation.
This engineer's report. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's not going to be any vote on it.
Okay, Ridgewood Bridge.
So the existing Ridgewood Bridge, it's a three-span bridge. It's a total of 65 feet. It's a little unique, we would say, for sort of a local township road, just in terms of the overall span and the three-span nature. Currently, the bridge is closed to all traffic, and it's been designated as structurally deficient by PennDOT. If you look on the left-hand side, and that's what I'll refer to later as span 3, the beams over on the left-hand side are severely deteriorated just because of salt runoff that's getting to them, and that's what's caused the closure. So you can see just in some of the photos a lot of the things going on. So the main highlight here is really kind of the corrosion that's ongoing with the beams. There's a few pavement issues. The deck itself is in fair shape, but the main issue and the main driver on everything for this bridge is the ceiling. So we've come up with 4 options. We'll run through the options real quick, and then we'll get the sort of a summation slide that has the cost and the anticipated lifespan. So option 1, you can kind of see on the sketch. So the focus there is sort of what we've termed the recommended minimum to reopen the bridge. So that's a partial superstructure replacement, focusing on that third span, that third 25 feet of the bridge. So in this option, we would remove the concrete deck, remove the steel just in that span, put in new steel beams, put in a new concrete deck, replace the parapets just in that section, and then we make some other minor repairs to the steel beams that are remaining just to kind of strengthen some things up to overcome some of the corrosion that's going on, as well as some minor repairs to the concrete deck. And then we also replace the approach slab on the neighborhood side as part of this work. And then the one thing that we have noted on here is that once we would make these repairs, the bridge is still going to be posted. Our calculations showed it's going to be posted as a 9-ton single or 15-ton combined bridge.
And I can speak to that. The history on this bridge is that when it was built, there were no standards in the township relative to what type of bridge was to be built. And I believe what I recall was it was built to county standards. So it was always built as a 15-ton bridge. It was never built for full truck traffic, which is, what, 30 tons roughly? 36 tons. So if repaired, you're going to be back to its original design specification. So I only say that because when it sounds like we're going to spend this money on a bridge and it's still going to have a rating on it, it always had a rating on it. So just for everybody's information. Because the beams just aren't, the beams were never sized for full truck traffic. Because there was always some other alternate to use the Calvin Bridge.
Which that is a 36.
That's full, yes.
Yeah, that's full unposted. So if you don't see a posting, then any road legal vehicle is safe to travel. So option 2, we get into a full superstructure replacement. So that's new beams, new deck over all 3 spans, and then also new approaches, some asphalt work. Option 3 is a complete replacement of the structure with a new, some sort of precast, whether that's a 3-barrel sort of box culvert or some sort of pond span type structure to just replace the entire thing. So that would be new foundation if it's a pond span, new precast, and then paving.
The one thing that we did mention is before we went to the efforts of looking at this, we did do some testing. We went out and poured the concrete abutments to make sure that there was sufficient funds would not have enough strength to do this rehabilitation. So we did confirm through testing that there is sufficient concrete there on the abutments.
Correct, yeah, it is 4,000 PSI concrete, and it was generally thick enough to accomplish,
What we need to.
yeah, that would be option 2, option 3, everything.
Right.
And then option 4, we just present for consideration, is just removal of the existing bridges. We talked about there's a secondary access. You wouldn't have access at that point, it would be a dead end on Ridgewood and no access off of it. So in summation for each of the options, so option 1, we have an estimated cost of $225,000. We have an estimated lifespan of 5 to 10 years before we get into another pretty significant rehab that likely involves a similar scope on either span 1 or span 1 and 2, depending on how corrosion of the beams progresses. Option 2, which is the full superstructure replacement, we've got an estimated cost of $550,000 for that work, an estimated lifespan of 35 years before a major rehab. Option 3, complete replacement of that structure at $850,000 with an estimated lifespan of 40 years before we get into a major rehab. And then option 4, which is the complete removal, we have an estimated cost of $175,000, obviously indefinite.
Yeah, so again, focused on the first option, I think what's important to understand is that if you spend the money on the span 3, which is the worst, that we wouldn't be redoing that work in 5 to 10 years. You have to get on to the next 2 sections that are deteriorating. So
how long would the repair on that section last? 35 years?
So that section would last about 35 years if we do a superstructure replacement on just that portion. That portion would
So you're essentially breaking up the cost over a period of years and focusing on the most deteriorated structure right now?
Correct.
Okay.
This project doesn't fit under the, Pennsylvania's doing what, 800 repairs of bridges in Pennsylvania? This is a bridge in Pennsylvania, right?
the fast.
It's a township road.
It's a township bridge.
Yeah,
It's not a PennDOT bridge.
But it's in Pennsylvania, I don't know. I never applied.
Well, you can apply for bridge bill money related to it. It's a federal program. I can tell you that it's going to cost at least, the construction cost is going to cost at least double what you would pay if you follow your own procedures. Because PennDOT procedures for bridges, and I have a lot of respect for their program, they don't differentiate between crossing the Holly Hill River or crossing Chartiers Creek or Miller's Run. You go through the same process for every bridge. You spend a lot of time and effort to satisfy PennDOT criteria to get their money. And at the end of the day, I work with different clients, and Kevin and I both have. Some people think that's worthwhile doing. I mean, that's something we can talk to people about, possibly lending some money to do that bridge. I'm not sure what's available right there now post-COVID. Their bridge work, PennDOT's, there's a name for it, FAST something.
Rapid bridge
Rapid
replacement.
bridge replacement. They did like 800 bridges in the state, and they were all, various sizes, and they basically handed those over to contractors to do design build work on them.
Walsh was the manager.
Investigated.
Yeah.
Walsh managed that project.
But PennDOT did that on PennDOT-owned bridges. PennDOT didn't come into townships and take over township-owned bridges. So we can investigate what he's saying, like federal grant money, but we can't expect PennDOT to come in and replace a bridge that they don't own.
Yeah, they wouldn't do it. You
Yeah.
have to apply for their money, and then you have to follow all their standards, is what I'm saying.
Really?
Timelines as well.
Yes.
So from a timeline perspective, when do we need, I mean, quite honestly, Ron and I would know, the residents up there are getting antsy. So would you expect that we give you an answer at the April meeting? Is
Sure,
that
that
what
will
you
be
would
fine.
want? Okay.
Number 2 is probably going to be the fastest way.
Option 2,
Yeah.
it's most efficient, that's the most efficient way to do it. Kevin and I are
It's
talking
going to
about
be
it,
the most efficient, yeah.
because you're doing the whole deck in one time rather than piecemeal.
Right. And you're good for 35 years.
Yes.
Okay. So I would expect us to kind of mull it over for the next month and then have it as an agenda item for vote at April meeting.
Dan, number two, if you use box culverts, would you pave right on top of them, or would you do like PennDOT did up here? They poured an 8-inch slab on top of it with all kind of rebar.
You have to have the slab on top, you have to have the slab on top, or you have to have enough fill on top before you put the pavement. The boxes need that structural reinforcement or gap to spread the wheel loads out to get them to work.
So you gotta get a thickness of aggregate above.
Yeah, so any one of the pre-passers will either specify a minimum of, say, 2 feet of aggregate fill, or they'll have some sort of 6 or 8 inch concrete slab that's got all the reinforcement that ties everything together. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, well, I was talking to Bill today, and he was concerned about the height of it, that he'd end up ramping up off of 50.
To redo the bridge
Yeah.
as a culvert. Yes, I mean, the elevations are important because you have to keep the same opening for the water.
Right.
And that's a whole other process too. If you, from a timeline standpoint, if you got into a complete removal, it would require a joint permit, which would take probably a year just to get the joint permit. If you're just doing a rehabilitation like we're talking about in option number 2, that doesn't require any further permitting from DEP.
Okay.
Correct?
Like you have an existing GPO level?
Yeah, we already have a crossing permit for there. As long as you don't change the waterway opening, we're fine.
Okay.
So maybe 2 would work, option 2 would work. You're losing 5 years off the total, but it's a difference of 550,000 to 850,000.
Thank you. Moving on. 59/2021, consider an agreement with Cherrybrook HOA for the buffer trees provided by the PA Turnpike Commission. The township just acted as a flow-through. The Turnpike Commission replaced $31,000 worth of trees that they took down outside of Cherrybrook. They couldn't directly give them money to Cherrybrook HOA, so they gave it to us. We entered into an agreement with Cherrybrook HOA and then gave them $31,000. It's only, just a pass through. Yeah, literally just a pass through. Do I have a motion to consider this agreement?
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.